do it.
I've been studying you, Pete Shimer. It's amazing after all these years and so much in common.
We go back a long way.
Yeah, we never sat down before.
I know, it's good.
Welcome to the Downtown Dogs. My name is Jimmy Rogers, and today's guest has achieved more than any Husky I know. He's been with Deloitte for 41 years as an auditor, a CEO, a CFO, a COO, currently a consultant to the CEO. Yep. Community work is equally impressive, from Washington Athletic Club, Seattle Children's, YMCA, Seattle Foundation Board of Directors, Seattle Bowl. Is that the kickoff classic, the preseason?
No, that was the bowl game we had here in 2001 and 2002.
I think Chuck Nelson was involved?
Chuck Nelson and I were the co-chairs.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, the Boeing Classic Executive Committee is that the Apple Cup?
No, that was the golf tournament.
Okay.
Todd Lywicki started a senior tour golf tournament, and Chuck Nelson and I were part of that as well.
NCAA Final Four host committees, correct?
Yes, Mike Lude asked me to get involved with that.
Board of Fred Hutch, board on the UW Foster School of Business. Previously, board with the University of Washington Foundation.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Let's see. Puget Sound Business Journal CFO of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Foster School Business Distinguished Alumni of the Year. Congratulations. UW Athletic Department Alumni of the Year. And congratulations to that. It's my honor to introduce Pete Shimer.
Thank you, Jim.
How you doing, Pete?
Good.
Good. So all this community work just kind of blows me away. Is it volunteer work? Are you getting paid?
Total volunteer work.
So how do you do that? I mean, I have a hard time getting through my day, and I'm, just doing the show. And
my parents, you and I both grew up in Beaverton, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
My parents really instilled in me at an early age just to give back to the community and be part of what makes stickiness in the community. And when I started work at Deloitte over 40 years ago, it was a job, but it was more than that to me. And I really wanted to be in a place where I sunk my roots into the Seattle community and felt like I was part of making something better.
So that basically just giving back is your reward.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's a lot to unpack here. So let's get busy here, Pete. How is your health, for starters? Any replacements?
2 knee replacements in the last year, but I feel great. My doctor told me if you can sleep and you can exercise and you can go up and down stairs, you can defer the replacement surgeries. Well, I couldn't go up and down stairs about a year ago, so I've had both my knees replaced. I'm back to cycling and running and all the things I was doing before, except playing basketball.
Is there anything that you could have done or we could have done differently back in the 80s when you played to lessen the impact on the knees? I mean, in football, you can tag off versus go full speed Monday through Friday, but in basketball, you can avoid the banging during the week, but the hardwood floor is just
Well, when I was growing up, I played so much outdoor basketball on the concrete and the asphalt. I was bound to have too much wear and tear on my knees.
Married for 41 years to Laurel, former Husky cheerleader.
Yep.
4 kids, all in their 30s.
Yep.
All graduated from the University of Washington.
All Huskies. We're season ticket holders, both for football and basketball, and our kids love to go to the games with us. So it's a good family tradition for us.
I just haven't heard much of your parents, and I'm curious, what did your parents do for a living?
So my parents got divorced when I was 7. So I grew up with my mom in Beaverton. My dad was a fundraising consultant, mostly for hospitals. So he basically raised money for hospitals and also worked for the YMCA, which is how I got on the board of the YMCA here, was kind of as a tribute to my dad. They've both since passed away. My dad lived into his 80s. My mom passed away a couple of years ago. She was 94 when she passed away.
It's a good life. Yeah. Any siblings?
I have an older brother who lives in the Bay Area. He was also a financial guy, CFO for a couple of companies in the Bay Area for a long time.
Okay, so your current passion is cycling, you mentioned earlier, and you don't do anything half speed. So you do the Seattle to Portland.
Yes.
You do San Francisco, a ride down there?
We
Not Seattle to San Francisco.
We did a ride from San Francisco to San Diego.
Okay.
It was just 2 of us, completely unsupported, kind of on our own. It was an amazing experience.
Mallorca?
We did Mallorca. There's a little island off the coast of Spain, and that was fantastic.
Pyrenees?
And we did a ride 2 years ago from the west coast of the Mediterranean Sea to the east coast of the Atlantic Ocean through the Pyrenees Mountains. It was an incredible experience, week long. We climbed about 54,000 feet of elevation and rode about 400 miles in that week. It was incredible.
Now, in my opinion, the most important thing is the fact that you were a Husky basketball player from
Yeah.
1980 to 85. During that period, who was the most athletic basketball player you'd ever met?
No question about it. Detlef Schrempf. He was, in school for 3 years while I was there. He made everything look so easy. Obviously, he had a great NBA career, involved heavily in the community. Have a good relationship with Detlef to this day. He's by far the best athlete I've ever played with.
And so obviously the best basketball player, the best athlete is Detlef, hands down.
Yep.
Now you only played 7 minutes.
Yeah, I was a walk-on.
You were a walk-on, okay.
I came up here mostly for the business school at the University of Washington, but also have a chance to play. Back then we had a JV team.
Correct.
And so I played mostly on the JV team, but my senior year I played 7 minutes on the varsity team. Got into 4 games. I scored 1 point in my career.
In the NCAA tournament,
In the NCAA tournament, 1984 against Nevada. And then in the second round, we had a great game against Duke. I didn't play in that game, but we upset Duke. That was Mike Krzyzewski's first game as a coach in the NCAA tournament.
Interesting.
So he was 0-1 after we played him.
Interesting. That's something to brag about. So a player like you, and I've known plenty of them who I'd gone against for 4 or 5 years. They were either backups or walk-ons. They never really saw the field, but they've all gone on to be very, very successful. And so is it safe to say that work ethic that is installed in you to be on that court every day?
No question. I mean, I showed up to practice the same as guys that started, the same as guys that played 30 minutes a game. And my job was really to run the scout team and to make sure that, as a scout team, we, got the guys who were going to play in the games ready. And I took that job very, very seriously. I loved being part of Husky athletics. I mean, that was a very formative time for all of us when we were going to college. The fellowship, the being part of a team, the discipline, having to go to practice every day. I loved it.
And then both of us are from the Beaverton area.
Yeah.
Beaverton and Aloha High School, District 48.
Yes. Arch rivals.
Arch rivals. And we both came to Seattle at the same time, and we had, looking back on it now, we both had incredible coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, from Marv Harshman, I don't know how many Marv Harshmans are left out there. I don't think there's too many Don James.
Not very many. I feel incredibly blessed to have played for Coach Harshman. I will tell you that I liked Coach Harshman a lot more after I was done playing than when I was playing, but I look back on the lessons that I learned from him and the teaching moments that occurred. I think at one time he did tell me during a practice that I was the worst basketball player that he'd ever seen. I know he meant it with love, but it was, at the moment, it didn't feel very good.
Right. I was never a fan of Don James.
Yeah.
From the day I met him.
Right.
But I wanted the disciplinarian coach
Exactly.
who was going to take us to the bowl games.
Exactly.
And we became friendly afterwards, but everybody says Don James, no, he was a coach first.
Yeah.
A coach
Yeah.
first. And now we had, back in Beaverton, Sunset High School, there was a running back. And I remember my sophomore year, because I transferred from Ashland
Yes.
to Aloha, Oregon, and I saw that game my sophomore year, and there's a kid named Van Pelt.
Larry Van Pelt.
Was just a beast.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know if I can tackle that guy. And then he went on to Princeton.
Yeah,
he
he
did,
did.
didn't he?
Yeah.
How's he doing now? Do you know?
I have not kept up with him.
Another one was Don Stubblefield.
Yes.
And he was a prototype Bill Walton.
Exactly.
And
So Don
looked like
Stubblefield played tight end at Stanford.
he did play tight end.
Yeah,
Did he?
In
Did
fact,
he stick with it?
he stopped after Stanford, but he's back in the Beaverton area. He lives in the same neighborhood that he grew up in. It's incredible.
Really nice guy.
Yeah.
We had the Blazers back then, which was just, I don't know how to, it was phenomenal.
When you and I were in high school, the Blazers won their only NBA championship, 1977, June 5th, 1977, over the Dr. J Philadelphia 76ers.
Lionel Hollins, David Twardzik, Walton,
Yeah.
rest in peace. Maurice Lucas.
Maurice
Remember
Lucas.
that fight with Maurice Lucas and
Daryl Dawkins.
Daryl Dawkins?
Absolutely.
Oh my God, I knew that I wanted to fight after I saw that. That was my destiny. That was very exciting. He went from being a vegetarian, a long-haired, bearded vegetarian.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything that year. And then the following year he came back, cut his hair, started eating meat.
Yeah.
And we won the NBA championship.
Exactly. And then he broke his foot the next year.
That's right. And that bothered him throughout his whole career, didn't it?
Yep.
Oh, gosh. So we live in one of the top 6 metropolitan cities in the United States. And that rings throughout the entire world, if you ask me, after traveling the world.
Yeah.
I love Seattle. So as far as the Washington Husky football program, it seems to me that, we should be in the top 4 every year. And I'm saying this from a place of experience.
Right.
So I took my trips to Notre Dame, Stanford, wherever, and Seattle was it.
Yeah.
From the water to the stadium to the mascot to the purple to the cheerleaders to the campus, the band.
Yeah.
And the education is great, but it wasn't too intimidating. Like, what I mean by that is Stanford was a little intimidating. I considered Stanford, but they weren't a defensive school, and obviously the Huskies had much more to offer than Stanford. But got to be honest with you, the education intimidated me. Like, would I be able to stay with it?
Can you hang it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're in a perfect situation where we're at. We're not sitting in a small town, Eugene, where you have one major Fortune 500 company that can afford to buy everybody. Much more to offer here, and I'll be quiet now.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, Jim. It's the University of Washington, for me, has always been, you've got the city, you've got corporate America here, you've got the opportunity for, if you want to stay here, to be involved in the community. It's got great athletics, it's got a great business school, it's got a great medical school, it's got a great engineering school. There's just so much to do here, and you have an opportunity to live right near the water, you live near the mountains. It's just, for me, it had it all.
It's hands down for me.
Yeah.
And since I've come back, I've come back to Seattle, I've traveled throughout the entire world, and I said, Seattle is the place I want to live.
Same here. I came up here from Oregon in 1980 and essentially never left.
Now, are you the founder of the Montlake Futures, which is the NIL program?
I am, and was.
And again, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how do you find the time for all this? And you got the kids and the family and the biking.
So our kids are older now. I mean, they're all in their 30s. It's Laurel and I are empty nesters, and I think it's just a matter of prioritization. I'm an early bird by nature. I'm usually up by 4:30 or so in the morning, and you just prioritize your day. Jen Cohen came to me about 4 years ago and said, "Hey, this NIL thing is becoming real. And we have to figure out a way to stay relevant in that." And so she said, would you help us kind of figure that out? And what she really meant was, will you run it?
Yeah.
And so in a moment of weakness, I said yes. And I really got together with Chris Peterson, who at the time had just finished coaching here. And I said, Chris, help us make this real in a way that stays true to the principles of the University of Washington. We didn't want to be a school that just kind of took bags of money and put them on people's doorsteps. We've seen that in different places, and that wasn't us. So we created an organization that we raised money, obviously. We had to be transactional. We had to be able to be relevant to the student athletes in the new world. But we also wanted to do it in a way that was transformational. So we paired up with organizations throughout the city, the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Boys and Girls Club, Seattle Children's Hospital, Fred Hutch Cancer Center. And we said, if we're going to give you money, you're going to actually have to work for it through donating your time and energy to these organizations. So that's how we kind of married it together. The coaches have been fantastic to work with. The challenge has been that the pay scale has just gone up and up and up. And we have to, again, be relevant to our competition, but without losing our soul.
So this is our 3rd year in the NIL?
4th year now.
4th year. So I know, obviously, with the national championship game, we got that one.
Yes. We would
consider us to be 1 for 4, or is it not easy to?
I think we're 2 for 4.
Okay.
We would not have been in the national championship game without Kalen DeBoer being fully aligned with Montlake Futures. Now, we're losing a little bit of the arms race because going into the Big Ten, we only have a half share of their, their distribution. So we have to figure out a way to keep up with the Ohio States and the Michigans and the Oregons of the world as we move into the next phase.
Understood. Back to DeBoer and Penix. Is it unethical for me to ask you how much money Penix got? Is that like asking what somebody's salary is, or is it public information?
Pretty public. It's pretty public information. He was at $1.5 million.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Can you explain Title IX as if you're explaining it to a second grader?
Sure. I mean, I think Title IX is, a law that came into being, I think it was 1972, which essentially says for public institutions, you have to have an equal level of opportunity between males and females. I'm fully supportive of Title IX. That doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be, the exact amount of money that goes to each gender.
So the key word is opportunity.
Opportunity.
Okay.
Exactly.
So if we have a wrestling team,
yes,
and we can't furnish that for the female athlete, we have to drop the wrestling program?
You've got to figure out a balance. Exactly. So the women's crew team may be on scholarship, whereas the men's crew team may not be on scholarship because they've got a football team, where the women don't have a football team. So you've got to find the balance in all of that. It's never an easy equation, though.
So I've asked most of the former players on the show about if they were to receive money from the NIL, how would you have handled it? And every one of them are like, it would have been horrible. I would have been partying. I wouldn't have done well. And so that part to me has been a real question mark. And then in the Portland airport about a month ago, I saw Jesse Palmer and the other guy that's on the ESPN from Michigan, the receiver.
Oh,
got a good laugh. Yeah, that guy. So he was there.
Yeah.
And I kind of watched him. It was about an hour or so delay. And then I saw an Oregon player wearing all the Oregon Duck garb, and he had a big ring on, so he must have been a transfer, because we know they haven't won a national title.
Exactly.
They haven't really won anything.
Exactly.
Have they? They probably gave him a ring anyhow. But anyhow, point being, now that I took my dig at the Ducks, point being, I watched Jesse Palmer walk up to this kid, and it dawned on me, and it was an aha moment for me, the mannerisms between Jesse and the player had reversed versus the mannerisms between a Jimmy Rogers and a Art Teal.
Yeah.
Or Jack Smith, or better yet, a Howard Cosell, who I met. And I was like, oh my God, that's Howard Cosell. And this was the opposite. Jesse Palmer was kind of sheepish.
Right.
Because these players are making as much, if not more.
I mean, some of these guys that are staying in school because they're making more money than going to the NFL or the NBA, it's a little bit crazy. I would say that those of us who were in the era, obviously before NIL, I think to the point you made earlier, most of us wouldn't have been prepared for the money that we were given.
Correct.
The kids today all have agents. Some good, some not so good.
Are they maturing faster due to?
Due
to the fact here's $500,000 versus $0?
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's, for many of their families, it's life-changing. Life-changing. So going back to this whole notion of transformation, we tried, when we founded Motlake Futures, to make sure we were doing some of the education things around, you got to pay taxes on this.
Right.
You got to make sure that you don't just waste it on, partying or cars or things now. This is not life-changing money that you're never going to have to work again. So it's like you've got to be able to.
Feels like it at 18.
It does. It feels like it, but you and I both know that it's not. I mean,
they need that agent, they need that parent, that coach
that has their best interest in mind, not their own best interest in mind.
So, for example, if a kid was getting $500,000 and then he messed up, got in a fight, got a DUI or something of that nature, and the money got dropped, that's one possibility.
Yep.
Going back to the 80s, I got a little bit of a trouble my freshman year. Hard to believe, I know. But I was so dreadful that I was going back to Ashland to pump gas. It wasn't about losing the $500,000, it was the scholarship.
Right.
I just earned a scholarship and I lost it.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. My dad had sold shoes for a living with 6 kids, and they were all counting on me.
Right.
And I messed up. So
Well,
now I think it's just it's not a natural process, is it? Or
I think we all made mistakes when we were growing up, but the penalties and the downside of making mistakes now are way more than when you and I were growing up. I mean,
exactly.
I think some of the things that we all did when we were growing up, we probably, A, we'd be embarrassed if everybody knew about them. B, we'd probably be on the other side of the law now.
Pete, what was your first concert?
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Where? Portland?
In Portland, Oregon.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Most memorable Husky game? It could be football, basketball.
By far, the USC Todd Marinovich game. I'm trying to remember what year that was. 1992, 1993. All I saw was purple.
All I saw was purple. Do you have a most memorable play? Any sport, UW sport, that is.
Detlef Schrempf taking us to triple overtime against UCLA to basically win the conference championship my senior year.
Did you have a difficulty adjusting when you knew sports was over?
I did. Even as a walk-on, I wasn't in the limelight. I wasn't, missing playing time per se, but I loved the fellowship of being together with not just the basketball players, but in the training room with the football players and all the other athletes that were there. When it's over, it just it's so binary. It was there and then it's not. And the thought that your daily walk down to, over the Montlake Bridge into the training room and into the facilities was never going to happen again. That was kind of a shock to the system.
Any regrets?
Zero regrets. Zero.
That's great. Did you ever consider going to the University of Oregon?
I kind of considered going there, but they didn't consider me. I was a big fan of Dick Harder back in the day, the Kamikaze Kids.
Same.
Because they played hard. They were tough.
Yeah.
But they didn't have any interest in me.
Favorite all-time coach in any sport and at any level?
I have so many. Lorenzo Romar, Chris Peterson, Don James, Tony Dungy, Mike Tomlin.
Tony Dungy, where'd that come into play?
I love
you didn't play
how
for him.
I didn't, and I didn't play football, but I love his view of life. I love the fact that he's got a spiritual connection to him. He was so principled in the way that he went about it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Lou Piniella.
Love Lou.
Just fiery, got after it.
I'm with you.
So I'm a huge fan of coaches. I'm a big soccer fan too. Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp. I love watching people hone their craft over a long period of time.
Did you watch the 1985 Orange Bowl?
Absolutely.
Where were you?
I was in Seattle.
Specifically?
I was at my house in
Okay.
Seattle. But yeah, I had lots of guys that I went to school with. I'd already graduated, and so I'd started my career at Deloitte. But watching you and Mike Gaffney and Hugh Millen and the whole crew, was incredible.
Oh, and you're going to be 63 soon?
Yep.
June?
June.
June. Okay. So, what accomplishment are you most proud of in your entire life?
I think getting my wife to marry, to get engaged to me after dating her for 10 days is probably the biggest accomplishment of my life. And the fact that we're still together 35 years later I don't know how she's put up with me, but she has.
Current state of NCAA football?
I don't like it, honestly.
Who does besides the players?
Exactly. I just think there's so little loyalty, so little focus on development. If kids don't play enough their first year, they're immediately looking for the next option, which is going to A, pay them more money, B, get in the transfer portal. I know the days of 12:30 kickoffs every Saturday are, it's gone and it's never coming back.
Never coming back.
Never.
Oh, shoot.
But I miss the development side of it.
Agreed. Agreed. What is your favorite word?
Compete.
What is your least favorite word?
Mayonnaise. I hate mayonnaise.
What turns you on?
Cycling turns me on.
What turns you off? Mayonnaise?
Mayonnaise for one, and rubbing styrofoam.
Oh,
When
interesting.
styrofoam rubs together, it's like fingers on a chalkboard. My skin just kind of.
So is that the noise that you hate the
Yeah,
most?
totally.
Is there a noise that you love?
The sound of a basketball swishing through the net on a perfect shot, that it's such a reinforcing mechanism. I could hear that over and over.
Did you have a statistic, whether it be high school or college, a free throw percentage that you can brag to?
Unfortunately, no.
I see you as a great free throw shooter.
I was pretty decent. I was decent, but
what was your specialty? Defense, passing.
I was a three-point shooter.
Yeah, before the
But
three-point.
before the three-point line came,
You were
right?
ripped off.
I was before my time. Yeah.
It wasn't in college either.
It came
That would've
the
been-
came the year after I left.
Things could have been so different.
Yeah. Although you still have to guard somebody, and I couldn't guard anybody.
That's interesting. I don't remember that.
I had my foot speed was not the best, Jimmy.
Okay. Hard to believe.
And I could jump like, that much.
What profession other than your own would you like to do?
I'd like to be a mailman. I know that's
Why is that?
That's probably way off the beaten path. For whatever reason, I love to get mail, and I've always wanted to be a guy that delivers the mail. And that's been just a little secret hobby of mine.
What profession other than your own would you like to do? Or would you not like to do? Excuse me.
I would never like to be an elected official, part of our government. I just that is not something that is appealing to me at all.
Interesting. Toxic.
Toxic. Yes.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you enter the pearly gates?
I would love for God to look at me and say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You exceeded the talents that you were given."
Pete, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
the Downtown Dogs.
Yeah, Jimmy, it was my pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great to be with you.
Thank you very much for joining us from the heart of Seattle, Washington. I'm Jimmy Rogers.